bear baiting, an issue with strong emotions.
I disagree with it on many terms. Ethical, it's not a sporting thing to do.
Bear baiting is absolutely necessary, or we down here in the suburbs are going to be eaten alive by bears.
Bear hunting with bait, traps, and dogs. Maine's the only state to allow all three. The Vote Yes side says that's barbaric, and you should vote to ban it.
So dumping 7 million pounds of human food into the woods every single year is the worst thing that you can do.
But the Vote No side insists bear baiting is a good thing, keeping a healthy bear population in check.
There's families up north, guys that depend on it. I mean, they guide full time, and that's their bread and butter, is bear hunting. And why would anybody want to take that from us?
The debate is on. The decision is yours.
That is democracy in action. That's how it works.
It's Your Vote 2014, the bear baiting referendum. Our goal right now, to hear from all sides and get at the issues that matter to you. CBS 13, Fox 23, and the Bangor Daily News present a special town hall event, and it begins right now. Here is your host, Mark Hyman.
Every day we hear from politicians and pundits on the national stage telling us they can solve all the problems, from Islamic fundamentalism to the territorial ambitions of Russia, and even protecting Hollywood celebrities when they insist on posting nude selfies in the cloud. Good evening, I'm Mark Hyman, host of Behind the Headlines. We're glad you're here. We're in the middle of it, we're in the thick of it. It's the bear bait debate. Thank you for joining us. Now, we have got a fantastic audience. Anxious to get started with a lot of great questions they're going to put to our panel of experts. But you at home can also join us in this discussion. I'll give you details in just a moment. But first, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panel. Joining us this evening is Daryl DeJoy. He's Executive Director of the Wildlife Alliance of Maine. Anita Koop. She's with Mainers for Fair Bear Hunting. Judy Camuso. She's with the Wildlife Division of the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. And James Cody, he's campaign manager for Save Maine's Bear Hunt. I'd like to also note that additional information on our panelists and organizations can be found on our website, wgme.com. Our panelists are here in their personal capacities. The views they represent are their own unless they tell us otherwise. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that the audience is anxious to get started. They've got a lot of great questions we want to put to our panel, but you at home can also join the discussion. WGME morning anchor Jana Barnello is manning our social media desk. She'll explain how you can join the discussion. Jana?
Thanks, Mark. It is so easy to get involved in this very controversial and emotional debate. Facebook and Twitter. If you're on Twitter, use the hashtag #YourVoiceYourFuture. We're monitoring that hashtag. We'll read your tweets throughout this debate. Also head to our page on Facebook, facebook.com/WGME13. We already have hundreds of comments from a lot of people all over the state on every side of this issue. But as you hear things tonight that maybe you have more questions about or want clarity on, let us know. I'll get your questions to our panel. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Jana. Now, before we start, I'd like to point out that our media partners, the Bangor Daily News, are here tonight. They've got 2 journalists in the audience, and I expect to hear more from them this evening. So we'd like to thank them for being part of this discussion. Now, this is a town hall. It's all about asking questions of our panel of experts. But we're going to start the evening off with the first question that will go to the live audience here. I'd like you to respond with the sound of applause. Your 2 choices and answers are yes and no. Please respond to this statement. It should be a crime to hunt bears with bait, traps, or dogs. Those who believe yes, please applaud. Those who believe no, please applaud. Well, our audience appears to be evenly divided in the issue. I suspect we're probably going to get the same response from our panelists, but by a show of hands, should it be a crime to hunt bears using bait, traps, or dogs? If you believe yes, please raise your hand. If you believe no, please raise your hand. Just join me, please. Step on over here, please. Oh, sure. We're ready. Step on over here. All right, we're going to start the evening off with our first question from the audience. Please tell us who you are, where do you live, and what is your question?
My name is Gina Stahl. I live in Portland, Maine. I am a companion animal behaviorist with a graduate degree in companion animal behavior and science. And my first question is for Judy Camuso and James Cody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I was wondering, is your target population for the bear population here in Maine still at 23,000? And how is it that you explain your inability to reach that goal in the past 10 years?
Let's start off with Judy. What is the target goal for the population?
Absolutely. A couple things. I just want to clarify. I am actually here in a professional capacity. I'm the Wildlife Division Director for Maine Fish and Wildlife, and so I am here representing the department. And just to clarify for people, as a department representative, I will be able to talk about science, about our bear management program, and about the reason why the department is opposed to this referendum. I won't engage in political discussion. So it's a good question, the population goal, and I should tell people that our population goals are set through a public process, and you're absolutely right. The public working group, the population goal we came up with was 23,000 bears. As you know, and as everyone is aware, right now we estimate the population is probably above 30,000, 31,000. The reality is, even with all four of these methods, we are not harvesting enough bears every year. And so without these methods, we'll have no ability to control the population. But if we look at our target, so we're not harvesting enough bears, and there's a couple of things that are playing into that. Primarily, we've lost significant number or a substantial number of hunters, and so we had a peak of about 18,000 hunters. Last year, we had less than 11,000 people engage in bear hunting. But people should know black bears, their population are expanding all across the country. So this isn't unique to Maine. This is something that bear managers all across the country are dealing with, a population that's been growing. And a lot of that was on purpose. For many years, most states were trying to grow their population. Right now, we really believe that we need all four of the available tools to us to be able to continue to control the population.
Let me follow up with Anita, kind of a two-part follow-up. Do you agree with Judy that 23,000 is the right number, or not? Do you have any other opinions on that? And then, assuming it is the correct number, isn't it reasonable to use all the tools available in order to achieve that target number?
Thank you for the question. Let me say, first of all, that I am not in a position to say whether that is the right number. Mark described all of us up here as experts on this, and I actually think that it might be helpful just to give a little bit of context to why I'm here speaking on behalf of this campaign and what my background is. I am here because I'm a Maine resident. I've lived here 15 years. I came here as a teenager and was so impressed with this state, with the beauty of the state, with its natural and open lands, that I ultimately find myself living here by choice, and have lived here for the last 15 years. I've hiked in Baxter. I've seen the black bears. And I actually really respect this state. This is the state that had the first animal protection law in the country back in the 1800s. This is the first state that had an elected official who was interested in animal welfare and who advocated for animal welfare and who worked for animal welfare. And that was our governor, the state governor, Percival Baxter. So the values of this state are ones that I identify with. So when I found out about these practices of how black bears in Maine are being killed, those practices particularly being baiting, hounding, and leg hold trapping, I was appalled. And I recognized it not only as not my value, but these are not the values of this state. And so I became involved with Mainers for Fair Bear Hunting and have been talking to people across the state in the signature gathering part of this, and know that many, many, many people share the view, once they learn about this, that this is not the value of the state, it's not their value, and that this is the opportunity for Mainers to bring these to a halt. So that doesn't make me an expert. I don't purport to be an expert on what the right number should be. But one doesn't have to be an expert to recognize that if these practices have been in place as long as they have, and this population is going up at the rate that it isn't working, and that it's time to stop and figure out what is different here, what is going on here in the state. And these practices are contributing to the problem, as I know we'll be discussing. Peter.
I know it was a great opening question, and I think both Daryl and James want to get involved in this. So let me bring Daryl into the discussion first.
Sure. I certainly know that the department does a good job of doing their best to estimate bear populations. It's very difficult. They use 3 relatively small study areas and they extrapolate from that, and I think I can agree that we likely have 30 or 31,000 bears. I don't agree on the other part of it. Obviously, I do my homework, I read a lot, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that feeding bears, baiting bears, the amount of food that we are presenting to them every fall at a time of year when they need the most calories is actually contributing to the population rise. And we'll go into that farther as we move along.
James?
Yeah, I think it's really important that the audience, both here tonight and our listening audience, understand the fact that Judy brought up a very important point, and that is the fact that the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife has a process by which the public can go through every year, or every 15 years, I should say, in order to help determine our management objectives for Maine black bears. I myself am not a biologist, and I don't pretend to be, but I think it's really important that, and I appreciate Anita's care for the state, love of the state, but the bottom line is the public has the ability to provide input into that process and into the management objectives, and that process is set to take place again next year in 2015, and the bottom line is, instead of going through that process with the rest of the public, we're faced with a multi-million-dollar referendum from an organization, frankly, that's based out of Washington, D.C., and fully funding almost the entire campaign of the proponents.
All right, we're back to the audience. Sir, please tell us who you are, where you live, and what is your question?
My name is Mike Delcamp. I live in Portland, Maine, and Mark, as I understand it, biologists are actually calling the shots on our main policy procedures with regard to the control of the population of the bear, as well as the deer and other aspects of our wildlife in the state of Maine. But what I have a question for the people who are proponents on the panel is when we have the deer population being hounded by, say, animals that are dogs that are loose and naturally packing together and then chasing and killing these deer in winter in the deep snow, most people recognize that as deplorable and not a good thing to have happen, including our game wardens, I would imagine. But why is it different when we have either hunters or contractors or wardens or whoever using bear hunting dog packs to chase and to presumably kill bear? I just don't understand that as a citizen of the state of Maine. And if we have a public referendum that says this is not correct procedure or policy, I'm sure that the biologists, who are creative, intelligent people, presumably, they'll be able to come up with another way to control the population. Furthermore, the population is naturally controlled by, say, the conditions, and also these creatures are territorial to begin with, so there are natural limits on population of bear.
All right, well, let me start off with James. So, great question. Dogs bad for deer, good for bears? Is that a reasonable supposition that he made?
It's not when it comes to this case. And I think it's really important for the public to understand that we don't have the opportunity for a line item veto in this case. We don't have the opportunity to select which methods we think are okay and which aren't. The bottom line is that the department, and based on their 40 years of scientific research, and a nationally recognized program, frankly, are telling us that they need all 3 methods in order to be able to control Maine's bear population. It doesn't work if you take one of those methods away. We're not going to be able to meet our harvest objectives, and we know that will result in increased human bear conflicts, not just in rural Maine, but in southern Maine as well. We saw that over the course of last year. We've seen bears outside of the Kennebunk School. We've seen bears in the middle of Topsom, in Litchfield, and the list goes on and on. Bear-human interactions are on the rise across the country, and I think we ought to take advantage of the fact that we have a nationally recognized program with one of the healthiest bear populations in the country and the lowest number of nuisance complaints.
Daryl, do you agree with James?
I would suggest that feeding bears human food is leading to nuisance complaints. Now, I'm going to preface that with a lot of the baiting is done in northern Maine, where there's a much lower population. But baiting is done across the state of Maine. I have 2 bait sites within 500 yards of my house. I'm in coastal northern Maine. And I do believe that anthropogenic food habituates bears to human areas, human food, human smells, if the baiting is done in those areas. So I think across the country we do see nuisance complaints. I think if the referendum passes, we'll see nuisance complaints. If the referendum doesn't pass, we'll see nuisance complaints.